Good day to all of you. I am going to give a small lecture between the adverbial clauses and the relative clauses that we have finished, and the adverbial clauses are going to come simply because I want to discuss what we have been doing so far and to answer a main question as to whether this kind of learning of grammar is actually necessary in the process of learning a language. The simple answer to that is no, it's not. Simply because you know how a language has been put together, simply because you know the words that are used to explain some grammatical components, does not mean that you become proficient in the language. And that is exactly what I have been doing in this more than a year-long program or this series. So then the question becomes why? Why bother? If I knew that, why would I bother to explain every little grammatical function that a sentence has? My answer to that is this, and I thought it is important that I address this simply because you gain more out of anything if you know the framework with which it has been done. Now, in the comments that I get sometimes on my, under the video, one had asked like, how can a university lecturer do this? I mean, hasn't she even read Gratiaen, to go back to grammar like this? The point is this, Gratiaen is an excellent theorist and he has made a huge seminal impact by saying that language can only be learned through impact. You know that it's a circular process, you learn something and then there's a +1. From that level you add a little bit more and then you use it again. And you come back and you add, you keep adding a +1, a little bit higher than a student already knew, so that he can practice that and come and progress incrementally, very slowly through getting an input or using that language. Now, language input is naturally given if you are within your context, people speak that language. For example, like I know Sinhala, there will be Tamil speakers. We never knew the grammar of Sinhala, we didn't have to know it. Because when we grew up, we absorbed it very naturally. So even now, if someone tells me to, what a vibhaktiya is or how this sandhi came about and how we put the words together, I wouldn't know. Of course, we had to learn it in school. And again, a question arises, why are we, actually bothering to teach that? Because learning how a language is put together belongs to the discipline of linguistics. It does not belong to the discipline of teaching and learning a language. Linguistics is not something you need, not really. If you are naturally in an environment in which you can absorb the language. So people like Gratiaen were absolutely correct. You need to acquire a language and not learn it. But I also think the responsibility of a university lecturer is to not only read everything that's, as much as possible, that's coming out of the centers of knowledge, which are generally considered to be the West, though again there are many problems with that assumption, is to read them and also see how you can apply it to the context that you actually are in. So, if you take an example of a Sri Lankan in a very remote village, naturally he will not acquire it as a child because his parents or his elders will not be speaking it. Then he becomes an adult. Now, if that adult is taken and transplanted in England or any other place, America, where they speak English, again he will acquire naturally within a few months because that is survival. If you don't speak it, you die. You need to ask for food or something. So, if you transplant that adult into an environment that gives you the chance to acquire, absorb subconsciously that language, again grammar is not necessary. But the truth is, neither of those options are available to that student. in my second program of the whole series, I spoke about how to acquire artificially such an environment. And I spoke about English, English songs, films, TV, radio, the newspaper, in which you can create your own environment. That is actually the best. Within that, I also know this. Adults being adults very often want to know why things are this way. And very often one of the most commonly used excuses I have heard, because I teach in the campus where adults come in, is that students say, we can't speak English, we don't know the grammar. So there is no point in saying you really don't need it, because if they don't have an environment in which they can absorb it, it's a catch-22. You are just going around in circles and they don't learn anything. So my option, the option I took here when I was invited to make some kind of contribution during the pandemic when people are at home, is to say, okay, if you are scared of not knowing grammar and if you don't have a context in which you can absorb it, here I have given within this more than a year-long series some basic grammatical input, so that if you think it's by not knowing this that you can't speak, now that excuse is gone. Because if you want to know what this clause is or what this tense is or how to use it, it's here and it's explained in Sinhala. Because it's human nature to fear what you don't know. For whatever excuse that you give it, if you don't know something, you naturally are afraid of it. So in a way, my exercise within these more than 50 programs was to actually establish a place where you can actually refer to some of these things. If you don't know an adverbial clause, you can do anything. I learned adverbial clause only because I had to teach it. Nothing, it will give nothing to you except if you think it's a problem, now learn it. So I will also in my adverbial clause lessons give you examples on the thumbnail of how this sentence can be used, so that yes, if I want to say this, I will do this, without just memorizing those ways of saying it. If your mind is a logical mind and you would like to know how it was done, I will also say it's this, because the language structure is very logical. That is why grammar is easy to teach, easy to learn. And that is why many tuition classes, many teachers depend on grammar, because it's such a quick fix. The students feel happy, oh, we know something, easy to teach, right? So, but I want to tell you, as somebody who has been teaching grammar for more than a year now to you through this program, that doesn't mean you know the language. It means you know the grammar point. So I've tried to overcome that problem also within this series by giving you a context, and that I have picked from literature. Poetry for the most part, but the last few lessons and in the future, the Zen stories come in, because I've tried to give at least one context in which you use that grammar. And there my hope was, if you like the poem, you will read some more poetry. Or if you like the Zen story, you might go in search of it. And again I said, in search of it, because of the internet, everything is now at your fingertips. Of course, again, you must be able to afford the internet, and again that can be a problem. Or about a month ago, I did a talk on how libraries can help here. You can ask your library people, please help get us English books, get us these kinds of things. It takes a village, it takes a whole community to help somebody improve as a personality, as a human being, and I hope one day we will get there when everybody is there to help each other and get good libraries into remote villages. It can be done. It needs a change of attitude. It needs access to knowledge, and my series has been geared to give you that access to grammar if you had worried about it. And of course, knowing it makes you a better speaker, writer. Not only knowing it, using what you know, using that knowledge in practical context. Again, difficult if you are in a remote village and you don't have anyone to speak to, but books you do have. Literature you can get your hands across. You know, you can get your hands on literature to read, if not in real books, at least on the internet. Have that attitude, and I hope if a teacher is listening, you'll realize how little grammar can do, but by having this, if you feel more confident that you know what's going on, the basic grammar has been given to you, laid out to you in this program. There's a whole ocean of more stuff that you can know. I've just picked a little bit. But I think it covers some of the basic things that you need to know when you use this language. Again, that depends on where you are, but I've put what I thought was, you know, basic grammar rules here, and I thought I'll talk to you about this because you need to know how you can use some knowledge source for it to be most effective. That is what I have tried to explain in this lecture. So I'll see you with my adverbial clauses next time. Thank you very much.